are live from Memorial Gallery at Farmingdale State College, and we're here for our fall exhibition, The Art of Being, Curious and Curated, featuring artists Jack Harris and Amanda Reilly. We're going to take a walk through the gallery today and see this exhibition that puts together mentor and mentee. Farmingdale State College Memorial Gallery is pleased to exhibit The Art of Being, Curious and Curated, featuring the work of two madly creative artists, both at an important moment in their career, sharing a connection and bond created right here at Farmingdale State College community. The exhibition includes a collection of pieces from both artists that give viewers a deeper look into their artistic journeys, as well as recent works, political posters, promotional materials, product design, and nostalgic works from their archives. Let's head into the gallery and learn more about their work. Welcome to the exhibition, The Art of Being, Curious and Curated, with Jack Harris and Amanda Reilly. There they are. Hi Jack, hi Amanda. Can we take a walk with you through the gallery today? Let's start over here with Jack. Jack, your first work, or set of works, Being Human. It tells us you know a lot about being human. Can you tell us your tips and tricks?
Sure. This series of paintings, I'm not sure how many are here, 3, 6, 11, I think, started when I was in Hartford in graduate school, so a long time ago. I did the first one of these experimenting with digital painting, which was the first time we really did pure digital painting. And I started working on them then, so that was a number of years ago. And I've worked on them ever since, went through a period of doing quite a few. I ended up doing 38 of them, and then using some number of them in a self-published book. The idea being that every one of us has some element of our personality that that contradicts what other people think of us or what other people know about us. So the idea was to using quotes from the individuals in the book, along with some kind of portrait, to create that contrast between hopefully what is an attractive portrait of the person and some kind of odd statement that they made throughout their lives. And they do tend to be, not on purpose, but they tended to be a lot of actors and actresses and stuff. I didn't realize it while I was painting that was what was happening. So towards the end, I started to try and get other kinds of characters into the process. So that's when I started adding like Mother Teresa, some of those kinds of other people into it, because I had Lucy and Elsa Lanchester, who was the Bride of Frankenstein. I had all these movie stars without really knowing it, or Jimi Hendrix, or all these popular culture figures. And it was an experiment to try and combine this sort of digital oil painting technique with these calligraphic marks on top of them. Some of them I think work better than others. They're a little tighter than I hoped in terms of the actual paintings, and didn't realize it while I was painting that they seemed, I've had people say, wow, you took photographs and played with them. And it's like, well, I did use photographic reference, but I think I painted them too tightly. And I hope that the calligraphic marks would, transcend that. But in some cases, it probably didn't. But I enjoyed doing them, and there's quite a few that I threw away, or didn't include. And I am working on a second volume of it. I'm trying to be more broad in the people I choose. So hopefully that will take another 6 years. The actual book only took a couple of weeks in this past summer. But the paintings themselves actually, other than sort of a burst at the end, took a number of years. So they represent a lot of work in between, teaching and whatever else I do.
Where can we find the book?
It actually is available through Blurb, which is a on-demand printing company, and it's available in 3 variations, 3 flavors. This is called a lay flat, where you get you get really nice flat spreads, which I prefer personally.
Yes.
It's expensive, and so only my mom actually.
Thanks, Mom.
only the only person that actually owns one. There's a traditional hardback, and then there's a paperback, or a trade paperback that is, I think, $9. So 3 or 4 people have gotten that one. So, and thank you to those people who
Get yours soon and bring it in for an autograph.
Yeah. So
Yes.
down here are some of the spreads flat.
Do you have a favorite?
My favorite is
Or many?
I have one that's not here, which is a painting of Mr. Bean, the English comedian.
Mr. Bean, yeah.
Which is not included. So Paul Mooney is one of my favorites, and while it doesn't come up for other people very much, this is a portrait of him as Scarface. He was the first Scarface. There's just something about it I like. I really like the color scheme, and again, a lot of what I did as I went through this was to experiment with color, because I never felt I was that particularly strong with color. So, things like Merlin and playing around with color and Mother Teresa. And one of my other favorites is Darwin. So I really like Darwin. And he's one of the very earlier ones also. The earliest one is not here, is Mark Twain. Oh, he is here. He's in this spread.
He's right here.
That's the very first one done actually in 2008. Can I say that?
Yeah.
That was the first attempt at painting, in digital oil and then adding this thing on top of it. So.
Do you have a history of painting in oil traditionally?
I do, but
or
not
other mediums?
Not a formal training in it. My background really is as a graphic designer. So what I do know about it has just been trial and error. I wish I had more formal, training, but in my master's degrees, it wasn't, technique wasn't really an issue. So it was really more about ideas. So the other thing that, I did all of this stuff this past summer. There is an open call from a book publisher, a publisher of graphic design named Graphice, and there was a protest poster open call for poster submissions. So I started working on those this summer, and everything in here I did this past summer, locked in my basement studio. This one obviously is not a protest poster, the Milton Glaser, but that was a poster I did shortly after his passing as a tribute to him, and also based on a poster that, believe it or not, it's a variation of a poster that I designed when I was a junior in college, so it's 40 years old.
Yeah.
As a sort of the basic structure of the design is actually 40 years old. So.
Do you often go back to work? So like you spent quite a bit of time on Being Human.
I do go back a lot, because it's one of the things that being a digital, working digitally has given you is, the old saying that Da Vinci said, work is never finished, it's abandoned. And, with digital work, you can't abandon it because it's always alive. So I do go back a lot to stuff. But I always loved the original version of this when I was a junior in college. And when he passed, I decided to revive it and revitalize it, I guess. And this will appear in the 2022 Graphice poster hand. The other stuff over here are the things that were done for the protest poster book as submissions. So the first one is in actually the whole set that you're about to go through, were all expressions of my feelings about Twitter, which involve the bird itself dropping its point of view on statues, and I actually started with the graphic version and felt like it was a little bit flat, and then came up with the idea of the bird and its interaction between statues that represent different subjects. So religion, feminism, heroes. So I just came up with these various subjects and found, I did not photograph these. These are found photography from Adobe Stock. But I found ones that represented the concepts that I wanted to illustrate. And, you know, just, I thought they were really funny.
You don't like Twitter.
That was all I was after, was funny, but I do have some issues with the stuff that gets on Twitter. This one was actually the first one I did when, probably 3 or 4 months after we started teaching remotely. And, you know, when it was difficult for us to get actual students to come on video, and there's always, you know, everybody's initials show up on screen, and so it occurred to me that since it was possible everyone was asleep during my classes, a series of Z's was a good representation of that. Had strong feelings about, you know, the events of January 6th, so I do a lot of stuff where I find hidden words and other words. So the word riot inside of patriotic. Again, this was really early in the process of last summer, but of you know, finding the word panic and pandemic. So these are, you know, a representative of the other half of work I do. I do a lot of personal illustration. I don't do a lot of commercial illustration anymore, and I do a lot of personal design work, particularly posters that. I do for myself and post on Instagram, and that's, you know, the point of them is I just express my point of view.
And humor.
Yes, there's an attempt at humor in there. You know, it's up to the individual to determine how funny that might be. So that, you know, covers what's in here.
Yeah.
It's really been a privilege to be part of this and to be part of, you know, Amanda's show as well. So, Amanda?
Let's take it away, Amanda. Hello, Amanda. So, Amanda, can you remind us of when you graduated from Farmingdale?
So I graduated from Farmingdale in 2015. I was a student of Jack Harris and Professor Jack Harris and Professor George Fernandez. And they were my mentors.
Yes.
And
Can we start over here in this part of the gallery? Yes. You recently had an exhibition at Muñeca Art House last year.
exhibition at Muñeca Art House in Patchogue, New York.
Yes.
And I had done this body work under the title Human Nature.
Ah,
I
okay.
developed this body of work in mid 2019 through beginning of 2020. And it was a response to some life circumstances that were going on in my life at the time. So I wanted to develop a body of work that reflected that. So basically, I wanted to create some sort of portraiture that reflected how I felt about people and humans. I created a bunch of pieces of body of work that sort of reflected a portraiture. And the sort of portraiture that I wanted to create was the sort of transmogrification of human to monster, human to animal. So the first pieces that we have here are ink drawings. Ink is my favorite medium. I feel like I'm able to express. So I wanted to create a portraiture that was a transmogrification between human and animal or human and monster. So the first 4 pieces that I have here in ink, I wanted to develop a series of pests and bugs. So it sort of was the combination of human and bugs as seen as pests. So
People bugging you?
yes. So these 4 pieces
Did you work in ink a lot when you were here at Farmingdale?
I did, especially in Jack's class. I had done a book, which I'll show you later. I had done a book of phobias, and I had done 23 ink drawings.
Oh.
Yeah, ink is just simply, it's such a great material.
How does that get you to these larger pieces that are all done in acrylic?
So I wanted to experiment. So originally I had done a lot of work in primary colors. I did a lot of like vaudeville and sideshow themed art many years ago, and a lot of it was based in these very primary colors. So I wanted to kind of escape from that. So I created a body of work, as you see here, and many more, that I wanted to experiment with all different color combinations, and not just reds and blue. So the first three pieces here are all portraits. Again, sort of morphed and transformed into these like crazy, chaotic ladies and creatures. And I mean, basically, I enjoy doing portraiture, but I enjoy doing portraiture to the point where I love creating like chaotic imagery and not being like regular portraiture. So these three I had done a lot of, again, like passing animals, oozing out of words of the subjects. My most recent piece here is this one right here, which is a piece kind of about anticipation and kind of like accepting the fact that like you anticipate, you know what the outcome is going to be. So that's sort of what this piece was illustrating. And then over here, I have a larger picture right here. This one was a little sketch I had reworked. And that's something that I do sometimes as I look back in my sketchbooks and I go, well, at the time I didn't think this is a very good idea, and I sort of like rework it into, a more advanced what my work looks like now. So this was a idea I had done years ago, and I reworked it, and it's a little bit more chaotic than what it was originally.
We see a lot of female figures in your work. Do you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, I enjoy drawing a female figure. I think sometimes I put myself in so I think some of the pieces might be, I don't
They
know.
might be you.
I don't know. As we discussed before, I used to do a lot of erotic art, and it was very like female figures based, and a lot of female and male anatomy that I included in my art years ago, and that's sort of, I think, from where I work now to where I was, is like a bridge of similar subject matter and similar language that I've included. So I always carry it with me. So this is like another painting I had done. This one was a reaction to something that was going on in my life. It's quite personal to me. My grandmother was sick with cancer at home, and I was, me and my family were taking care of her through all of 2019. She was in hospice, and I had never been through a situation like that before, and it was intense, a lot of emotions, a lot of frustrations. So some of my work does reflect that, and this was one of the pieces that I had drawn when she was going into hospice, and all of the medication, all the sorrow that kind of went along with that whole situation. So that was this piece.
Yes.
These are smaller, again, ink drawings related to like pests and bugs. I do ink drawings of all different sizes. The 9x12s, I do rather fast compared to the larger drawings. Like the larger ones that I do in watercolor take me a little bit more time to do, versus like, you know, two drawings that I kind of do on the go. But yeah, so the Adam and Eve one is more biblical. It's more like a twist on the biblical subject. Gossip was sort of like, again, stuff that was going on in my life at the time that I was annoyed about, and I wanted to sort of create a picture that reflected that. I do use, like, in my ink drawings, I tend to vary the lines. I tend to use a lot of, word I'm looking for it, a lot of, I use like a lot of certain specific lines that reflect a lot of emotion in my artwork. So a lot of the, especially that's why I love ink, is I feel as if the ink drawings do reflect a lot more emotion than my paintings do. You know, that's something I probably have to work on. But yeah, so the image flattery I did here was more of like the double-edged sword of flattery, and what flattery means to me, and how accepting a compliment is sometimes almost impossible for me to do. So that's that piece there. The piece Two-Face took me quite a bit of time and working to do. It's based on the unicorn tapestries.
Yes.
And at the time, I was trying to retain a sense of normalcy for my friends and for my family and for myself. So I felt like I was being pulled in many different directions, and many different. I felt like I was being pulled apart. So this painting sort of reflects that, and all the different, you know, attitudes I had with that. This painting experimented a lot with background and a lot with different color and lighting. And I usually stray away from painting horses and large animals like this, but this is something that I wanted to challenge myself with. Especially like throughout this body of work, I wanted to tackle subject matter that I was like afraid to tackle because I thought maybe technically I wouldn't be able to, like, with my skill.
That's great.
So the piece Radioactive, again, was sort of like a thought about what was going on in the current year with hospice and all the emotions that align with that. And this I had combined with both ink and watercolor on. With some of like the bigger pieces I had done, whilst I wanted to combine a little bit of color in my smaller. The piece Betrayal. This piece was a definite color experimentation piece. I painted it again in the same year in regards to a lot of friendships that had dissolved on me during the year. I usually stray away from creating such symmetrical art like this because sometimes it can come off as boring or mundane. So I wanted to do a spin on that, and I created a sort of piece that kind of resonated with me about, you know, backstabbing and kind of wanted to create like a landscape along with it too, something that I don't tackle a whole lot, and I wanted to combine both portrait and landscape together. In a very large, this piece started out very small, and then I decided to rework it much larger because sometimes I feel larger pieces have a more, I don't know, they tend to take on more meaning sometimes when pieces are larger than smaller works. And then my last piece, Vulnerability. This piece got into the Society of Illustrators
Yes.
in 2020. This piece is my absolute favorite. It's definitely something that I feel like this piece has a lot of meaning to me. any of the models that I've painted or drawn. I wanted to create a piece that showed, displayed like a predator, like a very dominant animal, sort of being diminished or shown in a way that usually dominant animals are not shown. Like I was going through a lot that year, and I basically wanted to describe. Maybe it was me. I don't know. It could be a portrait of me. I really don't know. I referenced a lot of sort of like Weimar Republic and German expressionism in this piece, merged with my favorite Japanese woodblock print kind of style, which something as I love to combine because it's both my favorite art styles. But yeah, this piece definitely resonates me with the most because I think symbolically it's one of my favorites.
It's a good place to end this section.
Yes.
Well, let's go over to the center of the gallery where we can find an interesting batch of goodies from both our artists, both some memories and some other ways that our work ties together. Jack, do you want to come tell us about some of the things we can find here?
Sure. This is a real strange mixture of stuff.
It is.
There are comic books that I wrote and drew and printed myself when I was 15 in high school. The paperback version of the Being Human book. The first children's book I illustrated, Packed with Poison, with a spider on the cover, which I absolutely am terrified of spiders. Coloring the Martian Chronicles cover, that was illustration by Jim Steranko, who is a big deal in comic books in the 60s and one of my favorites. And I got a call from him to color a black and white pencil drawing for the cover of this comic book. That was a high point, a low point in pain, but a high point in the vector graphics and illustration, the book that I finished right when I came to Farmingdale, which became irrelevant about 2 weeks after it was published when the new version of Illustrator came out. So I always found that to be just a funny thing. My resume right out of college was a Cracker Jack box, so I created a Cracker Jack label and took labels off of actual boxes of Cracker Jacks and relabeled them and sent those out as my resume. Early, right out of college work, still using an airbrush. I did a lot of work for a company called 1330 Corporation that produced all kinds of magazines. It was a lot of fun. They went out of business. A best of show, sorry, from my first professional year at an agency I worked at for about 18 years. So I was told by the people in the community that I was because I was new to the community, the design community, that I wasn't allowed to win a best of show, but I did anyway. So for 25 years or so, ran a design firm called Orbit. And we specialized in advertising and design for technology. And this it's just a collection of one of the. This is a self-promotion for the company right after I changed its name. It was surprisingly Harris Design, and so I decided that that was a little bit like Smith Design. So I decided I wanted a different name, and Orbit came to mind, and that's what we used for 25 years.
Was it inspired by anything specific?
Yeah, it was. All the logos at the time had rings around them for some goofy reason, like swooshes and rings and all kinds of stuff. So as a joke, I called it Orbit, and the logo was a parody of that kind of logo. It was just my goofy sense of humor again. So that was an early self-promotion. This was actually a can of hot.
Oh, like Red Hots?
Yeah, but big ones.
Oh, but giant red hots.
They mimicked my logo.
Oh.
And then we manufactured them and put it in a can. And it basically was, there was 15 of us, and it was so you knew what extension to call each of that. So it was just a way of letting people know how to contact each designer worked on their own stuff. So each designer had to be contacted directly by clients. So, and it was just fun. And that was us until I came here in 2008 and started teaching at Farmingdale. Amanda being one of my favorite students over the years. I'm really honored to be in here with her, and I want to thank Beth for arranging this and for inviting us. So take away Miss Reilly.
Thank you guys for coming together for this great exhibition. Okay, so let's start here, Amanda. There's something amazing in this case. I know you're very proud of. Please tell us about it.
So this is a drawing I had done while in Farmingdale State College while I was enrolled. And I had my Professor George Fernandez basically through all the drawings, like we picked and chose and we submitted a couple of my pieces that I was doing like self-initiated projects. And Professor George Fernandez sat down with me and we kind of picked and chose which ones he wanted to submit to the Society of Illustrated Student Competition. And yeah, so it was a long shot. And this one was selected. This was back in 2012. This was Swan Girl and Ecstasy. This is one of my very, very earliest works. You can see that this is where like my start of like erotic art sort of started, which eventually grew into what I do now. So this is the award that I had gotten.
Yes.
And this is the catalog that I was published in with the other students. So.
And as we move across the box over here, what else do we see?
So I have, my embroidery, I work a lot with different mediums. I do painting, drawing, embroidery, animation. I try to constantly learn, to constantly expand what could bring more life into my work. So back in 2017, I started to pick up machine embroidery. So I started to take some of my watercolors and bring them into fabric art. And this was one of them. This is all done on a Brother, I think it's called a Dreamweaver, sewing embroidery, machine embroidery machine. And there's a drawing of a sketch of my snake cat, which is right over there in the corner that I had done on a wool felt hat.
Is there a connection with your embroidery to your interest in vintage?
It is. I manage a vintage boutique out in Seaville, a friend who owns a paper doll vintage boutique. I've been working closely with her for a number of years now, and my interest in vintage, I suppose, bridged this way to learn how to take my art and sort of bring it into a more like tangible fashion and tangible fabric. So that's where and then so I have the mask. I made a Krampus mask during the pandemic for Paper Doll Curiosity Shop. It came with like a lot of other like little printables and stickers, but this was like the fabric design I had done. This is a candle I had made for Valentine's Day, which represents a queen with earrings that are acrylic earrings that I had done for her, as well as the scarf. This is a silk scarf I had illustrated digitally, and again, wanted to try to bring my artwork into something that was more tangible and someone could wear rather than like a print or a sticker or, and it was your present.
Yes, it was also my present.
It was something I made for you.
We'll do a little close-up for you. Where can people find these pieces of merchandise?
So all of my my scarves and my stickers and prints are all available on my website, amandareilly.com. I have them all for sale. This is a mug. There's a illustration on the back side of it. It says "Stay weird and raise hell." I had never done like ceramics and mugs before, so I wanted to try to create again like something where I can put my work on it and my work takes on a whole other meaning when it's on something rather than a print or sticker.
And what do we have here? Is that a little flashback?
So this is the phobia book that I had done in Jack Harris's class back in 2011. Oh, okay. 2011. This is the book that I had done about like 23 little ink drawings.
We're going back down memory lane with this piece that you did in Jack Harris's class.
So I had done about 23 ink drawings, small little ink drawings. It was the first time I had done a project of that scale with that many drawings in it. And that kind of started my love for drawing ink. And drawing a book for that matter.
So while you were at Farmingdale, you had another mentor too. Do you want to talk about that?
Yes. I'm going to talk about George.
Yes, of course. You had two really important mentors here, and you made a connection with two of our professors, which is rare. Sometimes you only get one in your whole lifetime, but you made such a deep connection with two that I think it would be great for people to hear about.
So I took his class TV design, which was back in 2008, and he hated me at first.
No, he didn't. He did not.
You know, I had like a very going into this program. I really didn't know if I wanted to be a designer or like really what I wanted to do. And what had happened was I tended to do all my sketchbook a lot, and I would sit in hallways because I really had no friends. And I would sit in the hallways, and I would just, continue to doodle in my sketchbook. And then at one point, he saw my doodles, and basically, we began to have a conversation about the stuff I was drawing and how frequently I would draw. And I guess it was something that he didn't see in other students that would draw the illustrations that I would. And eventually, over the years, he would give me independent projects, and I would work on that, and it was even over the summers. He would give me independent projects to work on. Eventually, one of my self-initiated projects got into the Society of Illustrators, and overall, for both of them, both Jack and George were just very supportive professors and friends of mine throughout the years that helped me able to grow and flourish and become the artist that I am today. So.
Well, that's perfect. Thank you for sharing that with us, Amanda. And Jack, do you have any memories of when Amanda was in your class that you loved? Do you have a favorite story?
It's
good for stories.
I admired most was the fact that she had such a personal language. And I still admire the fact that language she has not abandoned it. She continued to develop it. And I think that's really what an artist should do, is have this sort of singular vision. And I think she's managed to, unlike, I was not able to do that, but it's a very, it's what makes an artist with a capital A, is having that singular vision and pursuing it from there. And also, George was my mentor as well, so I do.
Oh, nice.
We went to college together.
I didn't know this.
And so, we both have a love for George. So, George, you should be in here as well.
We got to get him in here next.
Great friends, and both admirers of Amanda. And we did have, a lot of conversations about how there were a lot of great students, at that time. And it was a really enjoyable time. I was doing a senior project somewhere in that vicinity also, which is where I had, more opportunity to collaborate with Amanda. And those were great experiences. There have been others since, obviously, but that was
Say hi. Some of them are watching. I see some alumni on there.
high alumni.
Alumni. Well, I would just like to thank you, Amanda, and you, Jack, for coming together for this exhibition. It's the first time we've had an exhibit here at Farmingdale that put together the work of a mentor-mentee. And so I think it's been really exciting for everybody to see both your work side by side. So thank you.